Israeli airstrike in Iraq since 1981. To provide some more perspective on this, we bring in author of God is in the Crowd, former Israeli Air Force pilot, and co-founder of Clarity Capital, Tal Keenan. Tal, thanks so much for being with us this afternoon. You have lived in Israel and in the United States. You've raised your family in both countries. Give us some perspective on what you see happening, this sort of breakdown here in the United States along political lines of Jewish Americans.
Sure. Well, first of all, with regard to that attack, it's interesting that it's really not a top news item in the Israeli press, which I've been listening to over the last couple of days. Yeah, which I don't think it's so surprising to most Israelis, and that Israeli policy has been pretty clear. You have a regional power with ambitions for regional hegemony and an explicit intention to eradicate Israel.
Right.
Israeli policy has really been to interrupt that ambition wherever it's possible, and I don't think there are really any boundaries on that.
Well, we talk about here in the U.S., both sides of the political aisle very concerned about, Iran's nuclear ambitions. President Trump, super critical of President Obama's nuclear deal that he inked with Iran. But we have to keep in mind, some of our closest allies, like Israel, are in Iran's backyard. The threat's much more immediate and much more tangible.
Yeah, I think it's important to remember. Israel is the size of Vermont, and it's right next door to most of its enemies. So it is a much different threat, or certainly perceived as a much different threat in Israel than it is, and I think that's natural in the United States.
Tal, take a listen to President Trump on Wednesday at the White House. I want to get your reaction.
In my opinion, the Democrats have gone very far away from Israel. In my opinion, you vote for a Democrat, you're being very disloyal to Jewish people, and you're being very disloyal to Israel.
Major pushback, both sides of the aisle here to that comment. Some people going so far as to say it's actually an anti-Semitic comment in that it brings up a history where Jews have been accused of being disloyal across history. What was your response to that comment?
Well, first, I'm glad you played the whole clip because I think the president makes it clear he's talking about disloyalty to the Jewish people and to Israel, not disloyalty to the United States. And that's an important distinction. And I think there have been some disingenuous reactions to that. That's not, he was not raising the old canard. This is neither an attack nor a defense of Donald Trump's statements, but we should be honest in how we're looking at this. That disloyalty canard, I understand why it evokes that sort of reaction among Jews. It's been raised from the time of the pharaohs in Egypt until present day Europe. As a way to stoke hatred against Jews. I just don't think that's what's happening here. I also think it's important to make a distinction between disloyalty and dual loyalty. The dual loyalty charge, to me, is not a charge. These are two very compatible loyalties. And to put a pun on it, I know a lot of American Jews who have served and do serve in the U.S. military, put their lives at risk, have in some cases sacrificed their lives in defense of the United States. It's very difficult to accuse them of disloyalty, and virtually all of those people that I know are also Zionists. They love the Jewish people unabashedly and support that people's right to a national home. I think those two are actually quite compatible.